I know I said the Wii was going to be put away for a good while, but lately we've covered a handful of action games that featured a chainsaw. So how could we not check out Platinum's first game, MadWorld? This is Combat Overview. Here we go over the general controls, the main mechanics, who or what we use them on, and then seeing how it all comes together. We got ourselves a punch. Mash for a 4-hit combo, which usually ends by stunning. If you press forward at any point while attacking, you'll do this forward punch. It's a solid way to stun, doesn't set up some crowd control when they're sent flying, but does lead into wall splats. Hold A to grab, and yeah, waggling the entire remote will throw them. There's actually two versions. You got this overhead vertical toss, which does hit any enemy in their path, or this horizontal swing to do this crowd control swipe to hit nearby enemies, sending them all into a trap. Now with just the Wii remote, a horizontal swing does a backhand attack, usually does massive stun damage, and does a bit of crowd control too. If you fling the remote up, you'll do an uppercut launcher. No air juggles, but we still have some options here. You can hold A for this mid-air grab follow-up, that basically insta kills, or press B to cut him in half. They need to be stunned first for that one though. Or just let them land on the ground, and while they're flat on the floor, going for a grab will instead do this unique toss in front of you. And yeah, depending on where you stand, can set up a gory finisher. Now onto our chainsaw. We got ourselves a vertical and horizontal attack. Just the one swipe is all you have in either direction, and there's no combos with it or enders to chain into from the punches. And it doesn't lead into some specific D-limbs like Nano Breaker, how it would create new enemy types. Just a crowd control swipe to tear through a clump of enemies, and a damaging overhead slash that can also hit floored enemies. Now the chainsaw is very powerful, killing enemies in one swing most times. Because of that, it's not a good idea to use much, which I know sounds weird, but the game has an emphasis on its point system, mixing and matching a few deadly objects to get the most score. So using the chainsaw won't give you much because you're not creating these elaborate kills with the stage, you're just doing a simple one and done takedown. But it's the go-to option to really hurt bosses, that's for sure. Didn't expect it, but we got a jump. There's a stomp, slam attack, with either flatten enemies or max stun setting up a finisher. You can even use both chainsaw attacks, and I'm sure you can guess what they do. There's also melee weapons lying around like bats, dual blade spears, and more are added when you beat the game. They all have their own basic move and unique attack, even their own finishers. There's also one-use items to grab from poles, barrels, and bottles to use on enemies. Even toss them into the environment like this sign, breaking it, leaving 2 spikes. You can grab someone and plant them down. Or this case of money or donuts, can even be a pirate hat, it just depends on the level. But they're used to bait enemies into a small area, which lets you do whatever you want since they're distracted. But yeah, the main goal of the game is to use the environment and nearby items as much as possible. There's a few ways to stun enemies, letting you get them into certain areas, and depending on the stage layout, it makes the process a bit different at times. Onto defenses, waggling the nunchuck will have you flip. Only goes backwards, so if you want to go in any other direction, you gotta face the opposite way. But it does have full iframes during the entire thing, and cancels into it on hit, with startup, whatever. Glad there's a lot of room to get this since the Wii can be inconsistent at times. But yeah, there's even a counter punch afterwards if you decide to attack during that flip. Can even perfect dodge if you can believe it. Doesn't lead into much though, there's no unique attack follow-up or extra score bonus. This came out before Bayonetta, so don't expect some kind of witch time, letting you move in to start something. Just some nice visual flair is all. And yeah, you can tech falls by waggling right before you land, which is pretty nice. Looking at the HUD, the yellow meter is our health, and the meter underneath is for our chainsaw. Its meter begins to drain immediately as you hold the B button to rev it up. So attacking or not, once it's going, then it's using meter. So be sure to attack early as possible before overheating to save meter, because it does recover kinda slow. Oh yeah, we can even taunt by pressing down on the D-pad. It doesn't instantly aggro enemies, but it does get their attention, having them crowd around you. When it comes to the enemies, you got the basic grunts you'll see early on who attack occasionally, but pretty passive overall. The ninjas, which were a bit faster, which would have been cool if they dodged your slower chainsaw attacks. Maybe doing some sort of counter attack to punish you, to get you just punches more often, right? But they get hit by it just the same as the grunts. Zombies will actually bite you after a while when grabbed to break out, Or if you cut them horizontally, they become crawlers. Leave them alone long enough and they'll regenerate. So instead, chop them down vertically to kill them instantly. Cool, there's some hitbox, important stuff, but this only comes up with the zombies, so yeah. Guys with shields who will completely block chainsaw attacks. And punches too by the looks of it. Well, I guess not, seems pretty iffy. They'll block when they feel like it, even though it's held up. I guess your jab can open them up. And troopers would do this backstep to dodge at any point mid-combo. Then they'll charge forward with an attack of their own. So they keep you on your toes, making sure you don't get away with mashing. Also, enemies will block sometimes, but you can easily grab them on reaction to open them back up. So they have the little differences, but you'll notice pretty quick that most enemies don't really fight back too much, kind of just stand around to let you set this or that up. But we're playing the Wii, trying to get the controls to work when you want them to is bad enough as it is, you know. Also, pretty much every enemy is easily grabbed, so it's not too difficult to just take them to an instant kill with a little hassle. And if they do try to fight back, you can waggle the nunchuck headbutting them to build stun, stop that entirely. Okay, when they're right about to be killed, they will be opened up for a finisher. A glory kill, basically, with some QTEs. You can take them out with their chainsaw, doing a few different versions depending on their position. Or hold A to grab and swing them around. You even have control on where you move a bit and aim where you let go, flinging them towards some trap. Or if they're on the ground and ready for a finisher, you do a more powerful fling toss instead. But that's not all, because they sprinkle in these mini bosses too. Sometimes they're optional, but they put up a real fight. Either chase you around the stage, or they'll kill enemies, making it tricky for you to set up your own kills. And what makes them more interesting to fight, not only do they have their own moves, but some of them can be clashed with, setting up a power struggle. Only one or two of their attacks lead into this, but if you know their attack animations, you can react to it, and if one, can do major damage. Not only that, but every single stage has a boss fight. Even this early on, Platinum made sure bosses were a main focus. And yeah, they always end with some stylish, gory, over-the-top finisher. They're kind of like fatalities. But yeah, there's this sumo wrestler doing some 100 hand slaps and soldier charges. We even jump to slam a whole helicopter on top of you. So they have their unique attacks, which leads into some nice back and forth plays, using your iframe dodge to evade that one attack or a combo of theirs, and moving for the kill, doing some major damage with your chainsaw. There's also a bit of risk reward going on too, because you can't just flip through everything, which gets you away from the action, right? But just like the mini bosses, once you know their animations for which attacks can be clashed with, you can stand your ground and be ready for a mash off to deal some real damage. And yeah, later on, of course, we got ourselves a rival fight. Both of you have a motorcycle and a prosthetic chainsaw too. Your fight is done all on wheels with some jousting action. Then it ends by clashing with your bikes. Where else can you see that? Now even then, that's not the only rival fight we have left. There's one more for some true bare knuckle brawling. But yeah, I'm sure you've noticed by now, but QTEs play a huge role in these fights, so yeah. Be ready to waggle like crazy. And that's MadWorld. For a Wii game, I'm glad it's pretty straightforward and not too complicated. Wii controls are not the best for any kind of craziness, but it's what they allow you to do with these bit of options. It's why I still remembered, amongst a lot of other things too. And it has this arcadey setup, going to all sorts of deadly themed arenas with their own little objectives, doing this or that to reach a certain score, like tossing enemies across the table, right into the fireplace, or into the fountain, creating a nice little centerpiece, or catapulting someone to the moon. Do a few of these alongside the regular takedowns, and it all goes towards unlocking a bloodbath challenge in that stage. These are mini games pretty much. And yeah, of course, we gotta have ourselves some of those in a Wii game. But they have you use specific weapons, or you gotta find the best ways to put enemies in certain areas as fast as possible, like using a bat to home run enemies towards a dartboard, or stuffing alien faces with this bottle to shoot them off. Fun little switch ups, and it's worth doing the best you can, because the better you do, the faster you unlock the boss fight. So everything helps each other out. You don't want to stick around one area doing the same thing. You'll just get diminishing returns, kind of like Pro Skater, DMC, and Bayonetta, where repeating the same option over and over won't give you much. So it gets you to experiment a bit. Get more points that way, but also find all those little wild hazards in the stage, especially the more hidden ones unique to that level. Like tossing this alien to a UFO would give you this cow, because why not? or frying up some enemies before ringing them up. So it's a good idea to rotate through those options a bit to keep earning a solid amount of points, especially since they increase the number needed to complete a stage, and you're on a countdown timer. Yeah, it's really starting to sound like Tony Hawk now that I think about it. But yeah, for example, put a tire or anything over someone, jab 3 poles into them. I think you can go up to 5 at once, but take them to a spiked wall and there you go. That's pretty much the most points you can earn on a single enemy, and the extent of MadWorld's gameplay. Because of that, it's kind of weird to call it a beat 'em up since you're not really supposed to beat 'em up, right? You do have multiple cool ways to stun, but the environment does still work most of the time. But that's really the main draw of the game. It's all about seeing those wacky environmental kills you can find. And since it's on the Wii, yeah, this kind of stuff made the game stand out even more at the time. I think it was meant to just be shown off to your friends kind of thing. Like, look how violent this is and look what they got away with. That's how I got introduced to the game back then anyways. And it's wild to see it for the first time, but by the 5th and 6th, well, maybe not. Most of the appeal isn't the gameplay. Watching a compilation of all those kills while blasting that soundtrack on loop will just be fine. I think that'll give you the highlights while not having to deal with real Wii hardware and not having to fiddle with emulation settings to get all those motion controls mapped. Honestly, if you want a game that's really into trap mechanics, where you need to set up elaborate takedowns, play Trapped and Deception for that similar real-time action puzzle solving using different combinations of traps to help filter enemies into these wild setups of yours. But yeah, for Platinum's first game, it made a huge impression. They came out swinging to create a name for themselves, pushing the envelope on what you can get away with on a Nintendo console of all things. Not really this involved 3D brawler how'd you expect, but it has wildly creative animations, amazing music you won't forget, Adult Swim kind of humor from their commentators, and that stylized art direction of theirs is pretty timeless. It really did set the standard on why we can't get enough of their games for nearly 2 decades now. So if you want to see where it all began, then yeah, it's worth experiencing any way possible.